Oh, hey. Hey there. Welcome back. You look a little confused. It's probably because we haven't met in a while. But why don't we have a nice sit down for a fireside chat, shall we? Now, do you know where we can get a fire around here? I do. Yes, this will do. Hop on board and get a fire going. You remember how to start this thing? If you've been watching this channel for a while, I bet you do. Now, this isn't a tutorial on how to fire it up, so I'll take it from here. Remember what's next? We have to get a little waste fire going first. All right. You ready? Let's fire it up. Oh, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We now have a working fire on this model. Check how it looks. All right. We need to make an adjustments. Maybe a little bit more atomizer. Checking the light here. And a little left field. There it is. Oh, right there. That's it. All right, yeah. Welcome back to the ranch. Here's what the engine looks like so far. As you can see, we do have a working fire. Now, it wouldn't be highball sim if we didn't spend 10 minutes talking about how firing works. I know you know it already, but I just want to make a quick point of why it took so long to get to this point in the build. Okay, this is gonna be nerdy stuff. So if it's not your thing, you just want to see the visual model, you might want to skip ahead. But to me, the heart of the steam locomotive engine, an oil firing one at least, is not the steam. I don't think it's the burner. The burner makes the steam, and the steam flows through the engine. So the steam is more like the blood, and the burner is really the heart. So we're spending a lot of time getting the burner right, so that everything else is correct. And I think we are at that point today. So, for your information, this is not a copy and paste model or physics from the first sim, and that's because we're taking a different approach on building this engine from the first sim. And the first sim is built on what I would call an empirical model, meaning that everything was coded, kind of normalized from 0 to 1, and everything is fine tuned to how it should be, quote unquote. And that's because we know how those Disney engines work. So everything is coded to be like the Disney engine. If that makes any sense. It makes sense in my head. I don't know how it's coming out. But in this sim, we're taking kind of a reverse engineering approach. We're kind of approaching it from the other end. We assume that we don't know much of anything about the Disney engines, and we're just simply building a replica. We know what it looks like. We know its shape, its dimension, and we build from there. And then we use real numbers. For example, we now measure the fire in Fahrenheit. We measure the fuel flow in ounce per hour or gallons per hour, whichever we need to use. We can measure the heat output in BTU. That was not the case with Sim 1. Like I said, Sim 1 measures everything to 0 to 1. So 1 is a hot fire, right? 0.5 is like 50% draft, right? We've taken a different approach now to use real physical numbers. And as it turns out, when we do this, it's actually really, really correct. The number matches up with what would be what we know from the Disney engine, right? So like the fuel flow, the fuel amount, that matches up with the statistics that we have on the Disney engine. The BTU, the boiler size, given the boiler size, everything works the way it should be. So the experience, it's all behind the code. You're not seeing the code, but the experience is still similar because they both start from different ends but meet in the middle. But the advantage of this simulator is that we can now expose other variables that were not available to us in the first simulator. Okay. For example, because we're using real world values, we can change the fuel type. As you know, these days Disneyland Railroad towns run on biodiesel, but historically they ran diesel number two red even. Okay. And they do make a difference. Biodiesel has a slightly lower heating value than diesel number 2. So because that variable is now available to us, we can change the fuel type on the fly if that's what you want to do. So right now we're burning at about 2.7 million BTU per hour. If I change the fuel type to biodiesel, I drop down to 2.5. Okay. Change back again to number 2. Now we're back to 2.8 million BTU per hour. We're back to 2.8 instead of, what was it before, 2.7? That's because every time we select a fuel type also, the heating value is randomized within a range that's appropriate for fuel, of course. But this is particularly true for biodiesel because it's blended from organic oil, right? So it will have more variation. So now with biodiesel again, we're now back to 2.4 million BTU. Back to diesel with that 2.7. Number 2, that is. So how is that for level of detail? Granular amount of detail. Here's another example. One of the harder part to simulate, if you will, is the burner. And that's because burners are very proprietary. Manufacturers don't like to give out information about their particular burner. No, they'll give some basic statistics, right, or basic numbers. Like they might have a 2 million BTU, 3 million BTU per hour, with this much fuel flow, and so forth, and they'll give efficiency. But as far as like mixing characteristics, what's happening, the nozzle and the fuel siphoning characteristic, those are kind of proprietary information that they don't really share out, and that was one of the obstacles in working on Sim 1, trying to recreate a burner that they use on the Disneyland Railroad. So since we're taking a different approach in this build, coming from the other way, I decided to build my own burner. Okay. Now this burner that I built is basically a prototypical one. It's a cross section of different kind of burners that you might find in different kind of boilers. So the point of it is, it's a fairly typical burner, and we fitted it with a 2 million BTU per hour burner, which I think, which is an appropriate size for this engine. It's a fairly small burner. Now, because we built one burner already, we can build more, right? So here we fitted it with a 2 MBTU per hour burner. We can change this to a more powerful one, like a 3 MBTU per hour burner. Okay, so right now we're outputting about 2.7 MBTU per hour. I'm going to change this to a 3 MBTU per hour burner. There. Now, actually, the burning value went down. The output went down to 1.9. Why is that? And that's because a more powerful burner requires more fuel. That makes sense, right? Fuel equals heat output, more or less. So I have to make adjustment to the fire, or to the firing, to accommodate this burner. Now we're at 3.3 MBTU per hour. Make sense? So that's some of the work that's been going on behind the curtain, so to speak. We have now I think a very good, very accurate burner, and it's all the associated effects behind it. So, oh, now we have a bigger fire. Woo! It's getting hot. How is it where you are? Now we can go at phase 3. We can go up to 4 MBTU per hour, and that is gonna be way overkill for this engine. It's I did not have enough pressure, so fire's dead. Let's restart it. So since the fire died, up here, so also monitoring the boiler temperature. We were at about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're falling back down to about 150 already. Remember, cooling starts out fast. It's gonna taper out. This might take 40 minutes or something to get back down to ambient temperature, if I remember correctly. All right, let's get another fire going. I'm gonna change. You know what? Leave it at 4. Let's see what happens. Hey, ready? We're gonna need a lot more atomizing steam for this burner. Whoa! See that flash? There it is. Wow! Oh, look at that fire! You see how big that is? This is really overkill. We're now at about 4. We're over 4.5 MBTU per hour. That is insane. We get this. Let's get this back down to 3. I'm gonna do some steps so that we don't snuff out the fire. Right. So it has to be balanced. The fuel flow and the atomizing steam, it's got to be balanced. If not, you could, well, drown out the fire with steam. Okay. The other part of the equation of balancing the fire that's also been reworked and rewritten is the draft. So in Sim 1, you do have to manage. Well, you can manage the draft. But it's almost not necessary. In this build, because we now calculate everything on real world values, we can track draft in terms of cubic foot per minute of air that's actually flowing through the firebox. for example, we know that the air to fuel ratio of diesel is 15 to 1, right? Which means that for every pound of diesel, you need 15 pounds of air. And we know how much fuel is going through the burner because we control that with the fuel valve, right? Now this is about 60 pounds an hour and open up to 100 pounds per hour. Just a little bit of this makes a big difference. Where was the balance? Right there. So we can track how much air is needed at any moment and how much air it actually has at any moment. So unlike the first sim, we're not looking at values anymore from 0 to 1, 0 being off and 1 being on, and then interpolate somewhere in between. Now we can look at real values. So it brings me to say that when the engine is static, when it's not moving like this, there's not a whole lot of draft going here. So, well, you know what we do is we use the blower, right? So we can, right now we're at, the fire is at 1,349 degrees Fahrenheit. It's rated at 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's burning less than the peak because it's not getting enough air. But once we open the blower just a bit, there we go. I don't know if you can see, by the time this gets on YouTube and then compressed, and maybe you're watching us on your phone too, if so, good luck. I don't know if any of like these little details coming across, but now we're at about 1,470 something degrees Fahrenheit. Now if we go a little bit more than that, oh, now we're at about 1,460, because we're putting in a little bit too much air for the fire to really do its thing correctly. So you are balancing all these things, right? And you're always trying to hit a moving target. When you change the fuel, you have to change atomizer to match. I know we usually make adjustment the other way, atomize first then fuel, but this is just as a demonstration. But as you increase the atomizer, you're also increasing more fuel as it's siphoning more fuel out of the pipe, which means that you need to adjust your draft again. That's right. Now we're out of balance, and we have way too much fuel for this pressure. There we go. Okay. Does that make sense? Does that make sense that everything is connected? And that now we can track real world values, which I'm very happy that we are at this point. Now I know there is no water in here, so I see you. Put down your keyboard. That part is not done yet. Okay? So you don't have to leave me a comment and say, hey, you're firing with no water in the boiler. That's right, because it's nothing. There's literally is nothing in there. This needle is not gonna move, even though the boiler is already at 74 degrees. It gets to 200 something, it's not gonna heat up anything. Now let's move on from the physics of the burner. And the other thing that you probably have noticed already is the change in the fire, the actual light that it casts out from the people and the firebox. So we've all seen this in Sim 1 and how we can fire, adjust the fire based on the light that it gives out. In this sim, there's a new feature. So instead of just flickering the intensity, now when we make that was out of balance, you can actually see it kind of dance around as well. Give it really more of a dynamic look to how fire really is, right? The color also is we're now using color temperature in Kelvin. You might be familiar with that. So the color is not just an interpolation of RGB value, but a lot more accurate way to show the light. And of course, did you know that you can also see the fire outside? Yep, right there. This looks really good at night. I mean, like on the Unreal Engine at the park. You can see that little glow under the engine. Love it. All right, moving on. So you can already see how we can customize the burner and the fuel to change the way that you interact with the engine, to customize it a little bit. Now, why would you do that? Well, because I guess the short answer is because it's a simulator and you can, right? It's sandbox. And you can change things and learn about what the difference is and so forth. But in reality, this is not a necessarily an unrealistic feature, because these engines, they change all the time. They get fixed. The parts get swapped out, and sometimes the parts get swapped out for a part that's not necessarily equivalent. Okay. So sometimes, if an engine goes tech and they have to replace the burner, maybe they won't replace it with the same rating. Maybe they'll replace with a slightly higher one because that's the one they have on hand. Okay, so when you come into this engine, you might find that, oh, I have to change it up a little bit. I actually have to pay attention. The fuel valve is not always going to be in this position. It's going to change. It's dynamic. It depends on what equipment is actually on the engine. Now, that's not just limited to the burner and the fuel and those things, but these valves, we can change them out. Yeah. So, for example, I'm going to change out the atomizer. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been looking at this cab layout like on videos and on cab rides and making videos about it and so forth for like 15 or 20 years now. Jeez. I still get the atomizer and the blower confused because they put these three valves in a row. And sometimes if I'm just looking down here, especially if it's like right off camera, I think this is the atomizer. It isn't. This is the blower, right? So I'm gonna swap it out. I'm gonna swap out the atomizer for a red wheel. Now I know that this red wheel is directly connected to the fire, and I can change the shut off as well up here, which one is it? Shut off atomizer black to red. Okay. Now, why would you do this? Why would you customize your valves like this? Well, like I said, because these valves, they get swapped out all the time. It's not always going to be a static layout. It's not always going to be a static equipment. Okay, so, and you can customize it to the way you want. I'm going to change this water pipe. This is the injector left water. I'm going to change all the water stuff. Right. Now I know. This is the water supply. And change this to 3. You could do the same with this one. You get the idea. But now it's color coded. Black is gonna be steam. Red is steam to the fire. And green is water. So more than that, what you can really do is change different types of valve. Well, not different type, age of valve. Okay, everything on this engine now is new. You're never gonna find this on the line. More likely it's gonna be a mix of valves. Okay, so I'm gonna change the atomizer to an O valve, and look what happened. See the difference? The blower is new, atomizer is now old, so the wheel is more faded, and you see some more corrosion on the valve body itself. That clues you in there's an old valve. But more than that, what's going on behind the scene is that the flow through the valve is more turbulent. Okay, and that's because the fittings maybe more leaky. The stem packing leaks more, and what's it? The pad inside. That's what it's called. But the closure pad, you know, it's all worn out, and it creates a more turbulent flow behind the valve. So whereas before we were at about 90 psi or something through that valve, we're at about we're fluctuating now about 80, low 80 to 90, and the effect is that it does have a minute effect. Look at it. Watch the fire. So this is the old atomizer. We're gonna swap it out for a new atomizer. I don't know if you can tell the difference through this video, YouTube video, but it's there. It's minor. Oh, there it is. Now we can change the shutoff also. Let's make these shutoff also old. Oh, I think it's getting. I think it's pretty obvious now that the fire is not as steady because the steam flow behind the burner from the atomizer and also from the shutoff is more turbulent. Right, so that makes sense. It affects everything downstream. So if we put in, let's see, if we put in a new atomizer again, but with an old atomizer shutoff, that's still gonna have the effect, right? Because the atomizer shutoff is upstream of it, it's creating the turbulence down to the atomizer and to the burner. And yeah, you can customize almost every valve in here. Let's make this the left injector steam. We're gonna make this a normal type, just so we can see there's a slight visual difference, and we're gonna make the water one an old type. Okay, so the visual difference and the dynamics is instant. It's on the fly. You can customize it right in the sim as it's running. Okay. What else can we talk about? Oh, well, speaking of customizing, this is going to be the whole theme of today's video. You may notice that this engine is a new engine, right? And it looks new. I was watching Alex stream the other day. Not watching, sorry. I was on the stream the other day, watching him run the Disneyland Railroad. And what struck me the biggest difference is that engine looks a lot older, right? It has a more weather appearance. The cab head is grimier. There's water stains. There's oil stain. There's grime. Sim 1 model more of a typical state of the engine that you might find every day. This is obviously a new engine because we are building it new, literally. So it looks new, but if you miss that grime, that depth, because I think those kind of texturing does give it its depth. This one you might think looks flat because it's so shiny. We can change that on the fly as well. Now the next slider that I'm going to show you does exist in Sim 1, but I don't think it's obvious what it does because it only changes the code behind the physics behind the appearance. But watch, we're going to age this engine right in front of our eyes. Oh, did you see that? Do you see how it's more dull? There's more grime, especially on the smoke box and all the bright work. If we come back to the cab now, there's more grime and more stain on the back head. The pipes are getting pretty rusty. The injector rusty. Oh, what have they done to this engine? I'll tell you what they've done. Is that beyond just the appearance of it being older or looking older, it is older. The burner. Remember when we left this, the fire was perfect. But now look at it. What happened to it? That's because the burner is now not as effective on an older engine. And just similarly, the boiler jacket might be more worn out. You might not have as much insulation. It won't hold temperature. It's good. You're gonna find yourself on an older engine. You're using more steam. You're burning more fuel. You're making more adjustment to keep up. A lot of those things are dynamic. That this happens in Sim 1 too, but I think it's really neat that we can now see the effect more immediately. Oh my gosh! Do we dare to make this even older? Um, I'm kind of scared to. I gotta say. Oh, what have they done? What have they done to you? Oh, let's look inside. You shouldn't do this while there's a fire burning. But just look at the grime in here. Oh my goodness. The grime and soot. Oh, this is what the engine would look like coming into a restoration, right? Which is kind of what this siding is supposed to look like. Kind of like a locomotive workshop. This is how it comes in, and they take the cap off to go get it restored or rebuilt. And this is the rest of the engine that's left. And it looks like this. Oh, I cannot stand looking at this. This is not even the maximum that we can age it to. But this is at about 90%. And every time you change the age, it's once again, that's the theme of Highball Sim. It's not static. You're not just selecting 90% of anything. What's going on behind the scene is that you're given a range. So the engine condition might actually be somewhere between like 0.8 to 0.95 or something. So that the whole point is that you never really know what you're gonna get, so to speak, and that kind of keeps you have you pay attention to what's actually going on with the engine, not just like what you remember from the last time you run it. Oh, I cannot stand looking at my favorite engine like this. So it comes into the restoration like this, into the rehab like this, but let's put it back the way it should be. There we go. Oh, much better. That's the way I like it. But in a more typical condition, you might see something like this. I think that's a good compromise on like an engine, the state of the engine that you might find it from day to day. A little bit worn, but not abused. let's check the progress on the other side, um, ladies and gentlemen, the modeling. Look at what we have here. This is a work in progress, believe it or not. This is a work in progress of the 1955 gondola car modeled by our favorite Alex the historian. And it's beautiful. I love this model. Um, not only for the details, but for the appropriate amount of details. He really has eyes to on the eyes of modeling for the game engine. Um, yeah, we got bench seats inside. The door. We actually have a sliding door that's separate. Uh, we got the steps. We got the post. We got the handbrake over here. We got the gear. Oh, it's so good. I cannot wait to put this into the engine and pull it. I gotta tell you, this looks terrific. So we thank Alex so much for stepping up and helping this project go along, because he's really has made a big difference. And just look at it. I can't wait to see this behind the engine. Not only um not only do we have just superb detailing here, but I I would consider this the appropriate amount of detailing. Now, in a game, of course, you cannot put in like every screw head and every bolt head. You have to balance of how much detail to put in for the computer to run. But in this case, I think he did a great job. Even the planks on the side, on each side, you can see the relief between the planks. It looks great. All right. Speaking of which, the first model Alex did is the whistle, which has now been uh, put on the engine and imported into the Unreal Engine, and now sits on top of the Steam Dome. It's waiting. It's waiting for its first sound. Well, I got to do the cab first because we need the handle, the lever, the whistle lever, to operate it. And well, obviously, would help to have steam in the boiler. So, what's going from this point on? Alex has more models in the pipeline. We'll let him finish that, and we're gonna bring them in. I'm gonna keep working on the modeling myself. Obviously, the cab is missing, but you know, right here, we need to do the air compressor and finish up the plumbing, and then we're gonna put the steam in the boiler, steam her up, and then before you know it, we're running this thing around the park, well, the ranch first. We're running this thing around the ranch once again, and then eventually the park. Okay. So, more to come, but that's it for now. So, take care, and highball.